So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-2-1 formation to help you out during the level up promo on FIFA. But just before we get started guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop this a thumbs up as it does really help me out. If you want some coins for the new level up promo, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're very fast, they're very cheap, they're very reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% extra discount. Alright then guys, so starting off with today's custom tactics, for the defensive style, I like to have this on balanced. Now the reason we have it on balanced is because it does give us the best control over our defense. So when we want to press our opponent and be aggressive, we are able to do that, and then when we want to drop off, be a little bit more passive, we can also do that. So it does give us the best control and balance, which the other settings do not give us. Moving on to the defensive width guys, I have this on 36. The reason for this is it gives us a primarily narrow and compact defense, which basically means it's going to be difficult for our opponents to just run right through the middle of us and split our defense apart, because there's going to be less gaps, it's going to be tighter and more compact. The reason we don't lower the width any more than this though is because it's important to maintain some of the natural width of the formation to cover the wider areas in case an opponent tries an attack down the wing. Now moving on to the depth guys, I have this on 66. The reason for this is I don't like having a super low depth because it feels like you get pinned back all the time and you can't really get out your own box, and that's not the way I like to play. And on the flip side, I don't like having a crazy high depth because you just get through balled all the time. So basically your opponent just has to do one through ball and then you're completely undone, which is not good. So I kind of like to go for something in between where we're neither too high nor too deep with our defensive line, as I find it to be nice and balanced. Moving on to build-up play guys, I have this on balance. This is because I find it to be the most controlled, varied form of build-up in the game. Basically with balance, you can pick and choose when and where you use each style of build-up. For example, you can randomly decide to build up a little bit slower, or then you could switch up to be a little bit quicker. You really do have the options. For example, if you use something like fast build-up, you always have to play quickly. You can't randomly decide to play a little bit slower. The same way if you use slow build-up, you can't randomly decide to play a little bit faster, you know. With balance, you can really pick and choose when and where you use each form of build-up. Moving on to chance creation guys, I have this on direct passing. The reason for this is direct passing is the most meta option in the game. Basically, when you use direct passing, your attacking players will bunch up against the opposition defenders, meaning you can do the very overpowered 1v1 isolation plays, which makes it very easy to create chances. Players will also make those extra movements in the penalty box so you can get off the extra pass to guarantee those goals. This is why I think direct passing is super important in my opinion. Now moving on to the attacking width guys, I have this on 42. The reason for this is I don't like my width being crazy low, because even though this is a narrow formation, it feels a bit too narrow when you have the width too low, where your players are like glued together and it's hard to get anything going. And on the flip side, we don't want to make the width crazy high because then it feels a bit like a a 4-3-3 formation. So we kind of just want to go for like a nice balanced width. Doesn't really matter, anywhere from like 40 to like 45 I'd say is ideal. But yeah, moving on to players in box guys, we have this on 3. This is so we can get a few players into the box to create those chances, but at the same time we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we're always getting counter attacked. And as for corners and free kicks guys, we have these both on 1 because there is a set piece routine that I use which requires these to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the players you want to use guys, I'm just going to give you some suggestions on each position, because a lot of people ask which types of players they should be using in each position for a certain formation. So I'm just going to give you a basic guideline to help you out if you are struggling. It's not something you have to copy and use if you don't want. It's just to give you an idea of the types of players that you can use. So starting off with the striker guys, I would suggest getting somebody that can do a bit of everything. This is because it is a 1 striker formation, so where you could get the balance between 2 strikers in a 2 striker formation, like one more creative player and then a more clinical finisher next to him, you kind of have to get that all in one player in a 1 striker formation. So I I would suggest somebody that can do a bit of everything, somebody that could maybe shoot on either foot, somebody with a decent dribbling ability, somebody that's fast and strong, somebody that can also maybe pass to help link up the plays. So basically just go for a nice well-rounded player, as I think it makes your attack a little bit easier and a bit more varied, to be honest with you. Now moving on to the right forward and the left forward, guys, I suggest using wingers. This is because these players are the main outlets in the team. I know they're not technically wingers, but a lot of the time they will be the players that have to take on a man, players that you really want to have the good pace. So you're going to want players that have got really good dribbling and pace, players that also have skill moves so that they can use a trick to beat a man, and also players that can shoot the ball, because they are going to be in those positions where they will get those shooting opportunities. So it is important that they can actually finish off those chances. Now moving on to the right centre mid, guys, I like to use a more box-to-box style midfielder. This is somebody that will attack and defend, so I would suggest somebody with a high work rate if you can get it, as you get that maximum contribution in both the attack and the defence. But yeah, just ensure that you've got a nice well-rounded player to use in this position. Now moving on to the middle centre mid, guys, I like to use a more defensive minded player. This is somebody that will stay back and basically be an anchor, basically be as defensive as possible. So I would suggest somebody with a medium high work rate if you can get it, as you get that maximum contribution in the defence and they're not too bothered about going forward. As for the left centre mid, guys, I suggest using an actual attacker here. This is because this player is not actually going to have to play as a centre mid when we don't have the ball and we're defending. So it means you don't have to worry about their defensive ability. This will make more sense in the player instructions, but you can use anybody you want in this position, like an Mbappe, Neymar, Messi, Alawaran, pretty much anybody you want in this position right here. As for the two fullbacks, guys, you can pretty much use whoever you want. You can use two attacking fullbacks if you want, two defensive fullbacks, or you could go for a balance where you've got one more attacking fullback and then one more defensive fullback, but it's completely up to you what you decide there. As for the centre backs, guys, these just need to be the full meta players. These are obviously players that are very quick, maybe have a medium high work rate, so you get the best work rates, somebody that has decent physicality and height, and good animation choices at the same time. As for the goalkeeper, guys, really does not matter, use whoever you want. Now moving on to the player instructions, guys, on the striker we have him on stay central and mixed attack. The reason we have him on stay central is because he is our striker, so we don't want him drifting off into those wider areas. We do want him to be in the correct positions, which is why we do want him to stay central. We also have him on mixed attack, as I feel like you get a lot more out of the player this way. When you put them on mixed attack, they make more versatile movements, they do a lot more, and it just makes it a bit more free flowing in attack, in my opinion. When you have them on getting behind, they're always making the same one-dimensional predictable runs, which a good player will cotton on to fairly quickly. Now moving on to the left forward, guys, we have him on stay central and getting behind. We have him on stay central, so he does primarily stay in those more narrow areas. If we have him on balance width, he can play a bit more like a winger, and that feels a bit like a 4-3-3, which is not what we want at times. So we want him to stay central, so he's staying nice and connected to the rest of the attack. And we also have this player on getting behind, so we can utilize his pace to get the best runs out of him and really trouble the opponent's defense. Moving on to the right forward, guys, we have him on comeback on defense. Now the reason we have him on comeback on defense is because it'll make this team defend in a 4-4-2 shape. Why, you might ask? Well, the 4-4-2 is probably one of the best defensive formations in the game, so we will attack in a 4-3-2-1 and defend in a 4-4-2, so we're both good in attack and defense. Now moving on to the right centre mid, guys, the more box-to-box style player, we have him on the default settings and cover centre. We have him on the default settings because, like I said, he's a box-to-box player. He's got a bit of a free roll, so we kind of just want to leave him alone. The only important thing is that we have him on cover centre, so he does defend as one of those centre mids in the 4-4-2 shape. Moving on to the middle centre mid, guys, the more defensive-minded player, we have him on stay back, stay on the edge of the box cross, and cover centre. We have him on stay back because he's a more defensive-minded player. Stay on the edge of the box cross means if he does end up on a run forward, he won't commit into the penalty area. And then most importantly, we have him on cover centre, so he does defend as one of those centre mids in the 4-4-2 shape. Moving on to the left centre mid, guys, where we use an actual attacker, we have him on get forward, get into the box cross, and most importantly cover wing. Because he's an attacker, we do actually want him to go forward. We want him to get into the box for cross so he can actually contribute, and most importantly cover wing, so he will defend as a left mid in the 4-4-2 shape. So when we don't have the ball, the back four will be the same. Havertz will be my left mid, Casemiro will be my left centre mid, Modric will be my right centre mid, and Sterling will be my right mid. Now moving on to the fullbacks, guys, I have the left back on balanced attack and overlap. This is so we can add extra width to the attack with the overlap run type, which means this player will actually go forward and assist me in attack. And then for my right back, I have him on stay back and overlap, so we always have at least 3 defenders back at a time, but we have him on the overlap run type, so when we do send him on a run forward, he'll make the overlapping runs to add extra width. As for the centre backs and the keeper, guys, these are on the default settings and I don't touch them. But yeah, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-2-1. If you have enjoyed or found it useful, please be sure to drop this a like, sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.